One accusation frequently directed at atheists or secularists in the United States is that not only are we persecuting Christians and infringing on their religious liberty, but that we coddle Muslims and treat them with a double standard in comparison to Christians. Now, I don't have a mouse in my pocket or anything, but I feel confident in not only speaking on my own behalf, but also on behalf of most American secularists when I say that this is completely absurd. There's nothing more than sour grapes from Christians who continue to see their influence and ill-gotten privileges eroding. It is just another dimension of the Christian pseudo-persecution narrative, which I've done a video about previously, and I'll link to that below. Basically, there's this widely held belief among the Christian right in the US that our country is founded upon Judeo-Christian values and that Christianity is basically our unspoken state religion. They feel that Christianity deserves special treatment because the founding fathers predicated our inalienable rights upon having been endowed by our Creator, which of course they assert is the God of the Bible. They contend that if our rights aren't granted by God, then they are just ideas of man and have no justification or rational basis, and that they can just be overturned at any point and the government can just morph into a tyrannical totalitarian state. Of course, this is just ridiculous because these ideals and principles can easily be defended and accepted as being necessary for a free nation without appealing to any deities or religious traditions, and the fact that since the God of the Bible doesn't actually exist, these principles were in fact the work of man anyways. Now, since such fundamentalist Christians have this view of our nation and government, they tend to interpret the First Amendment as freedom to choose a sect of Christianity rather than freedom of religion. Since current events have put Islamic extremism and terrorism at the forefront of our consciousness, there is a great level of fear and paranoia about Muslims which permeates through the Christian fundamentalist population. Due to this, many have been quite outspoken about curtailing the First Amendment rights of American Muslims. For example, Brian Fisher of the Orwellian named American Family Association constantly campaigns for the cessation of any mosque building in the U.S., the prevention of any Muslim immigration, the prevention of Muslims serving in the military, and claims that the First Amendment doesn't even apply to Muslims. He also took the opportunity recently to author a piece claiming that atheists shouldn't be allowed to serve in the military in response to complaints that reenlistment in the Air Force requires affirming an oath, including the phrase, "So help me God." Now, when secularists see such rhetoric, we step up to rightfully defend the constitutional rights of Muslims or any other religious minorities in the United States. While atheists view all religions as equally false and absurd with respect to their claims of the existence of a God or gods, we will still fight for the constitutional rights of anyone to believe what they wish and to practice their religion in an appropriate manner. Defending the rights of Muslims to practice their faith in the United States is not showing favor to them. It is simply acknowledging that their rights are equal to those of Christians or to any other religious group. While we may disagree with the beliefs of religious groups, we still respect their right to hold them. The simple fact is that if Christians did not have an air of entitlement or superiority, if they hadn't utilized their majority status and influence over the past 250 years to carve out special privileges for themselves, then this wouldn't even be an issue. It isn't Muslims erecting monuments to Sharia law in front of courthouses or state capitol buildings. It isn't Hindus compelling us to pledge allegiance to one nation under Vishnu. It isn't Wiccans stamping pentagrams on our currency as an assumed display of national unity. No, it is Christians who insist on inserting their God and their beliefs into the government and into the public sphere without any regard for the dissenting beliefs of others. If you want to erect Christian monuments on public property, then you have to also allow similar monuments from other religious groups in the same space. Otherwise, it gives the appearance of the government favoring or endorsing a specific religion. Now, preferably, believers would keep their monuments and displays on private property, lest public spaces become cluttered with competing ideologies vying for legitimacy. However, if theists insist on placing their religious displays on public property, then all must be welcomed, including displays which recognize the secular portion of our population. So, what some Christians in the US are doing is playing the victim when in fact they are the perpetrators, seeking to victimize non-Christians who simply want equality under the law. Then, when secularists defend these minorities, they twist that justified action into favoritism of other religions and persecution of Christians. Now, I do want to address the fact that there have been some cases where accommodations have been made to some religious minorities, including Muslims, that seem to go beyond what is generally offered to other religions. When such occasions do arise, again, secularists should take the position of demanding uniform treatment for all religious beliefs. There should not be exemptions to laws or policies made for one group but not for another. Another point I want to make is that the dogma associated with a specific religion or the behavior of the adherents of a specific religion have no bearing on the veracity of that religion's claims. For example, just because fundamentalist Muslims tend to be more violent than fundamentalist Christians, that doesn't mean that Christianity is any more valid or true than Islam. Besides, there are many other factors to consider besides just religion when looking at the behavior of those who practice certain faiths. For example, there are political, economic, and cultural aspects which affect how people act. Just compare the behavior and political ideologies between American Christians on the right and that of American Christians who are more liberal. All of these people are Christians and believe that Jesus Christ existed and sacrificed himself to save mankind, yet their political opinions and resultant behavior can be polar opposites. Or consider why Islamic terrorism almost always traces back to Middle Eastern countries where various Islamic factions have been fighting for centuries over land, resources, or power. Religion itself is rarely the sole motivating force behind extreme actions. Another thing to remember is that Christians were certainly no saints throughout their history either. Heretics were frequently imprisoned, tortured, or executed in excruciatingly painful manners. There were the Crusades, the Inquisition, and witch trials, just to name a few notable examples of Christian-related atrocities. Even today, there are still areas where Christianity can be the cause of heinous acts. Just look no further than the persecution of homosexuals in Uganda, for example. Again, for a variety of reasons, many individuals who currently practice Christianity have a far more enlightened viewpoint and would readily condemn any of the acts that I have described, even if they still have underlying contempt for non-believers or for homosexuals based upon their beliefs. One thing that never ceases to amaze me is that the Christian fundamentalists who oppose same-sex marriage and who claim that homosexuality is a sin and abomination, and who actively campaign to keep homosexuals unequal under the law, and then turn around and try to defend their position by pointing to Islamic countries that kill homosexuals. They're pretty much deflecting from their lack of an actual argument to support their stance by saying, hey, at least we're not Muslims, which, of course, isn't much of a defense at all. That's akin to a rapist patting himself on the back because at least he didn't kill anybody. So, to summarize, atheists like myself consider beliefs in any theistic gods to be equally absurd, but we still respect the constitutional right of people to practice their beliefs and will work to defend all religious groups equally. Defending religious minorities, including Muslims, against the likes of dominionist Christians who want to exempt them from their First Amendment rights is not an affront to Christians or to Christianity, nor is it an endorsement of favoritism towards other religions. Now, before I go, I do want to give a quick shout out to Pete Finch and his YouTube channel. I will post a link here to his channel. He's done several good videos about atheism and religion and gay rights, and also accidentally shitting your pants. So be sure to head over and subscribe to see what he's all about. And as usual, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And when debating with theists, just remember to keep calm. It seems legit.